Welcome back to another episode of Strange Conspiracies. I'm your host, Cody. We actually have a friend of the channel who's going to share with us today. His name, as many of you know him, is Ashes. Ashes is going to share with us just some different encounters he's experienced through his life, from Bigfoot to paranormal. And I hope you guys really tune in. His paranormal experience is definitely wild. Um, just think the Grudge. That's the best way I can put it. So let's go ahead and dive right into it.
Well, since I was young age, probably the first thing that ever happened to me is, I grew up in eastern Oklahoma. I'm in Arkansas now, and basically on the line of Oklahoma over in LeFlore County, which is infamous, for a lot of cryptic activity, Bigfoot, famous for the LeFlore County Bigfoot Wars, which I didn't know about till a couple years ago, but um our family been owning this land probably, I say, maybe about 4 acres, but it's little lots that they had mobile homes on. And, about an acre of it's woods, and these woods, why I'm telling you this is kind of, it ties in a few stories. In this woods, you can follow it all the way to the Arkansas River. Now, 2.5 miles, 3 miles of the Arkansas River, but also down there is what they call the Spiro Mounds. And what that is, Native American burial grounds, is supposedly over 2,000 years old. The Cato Indians is what they call them. And when they excavated it and took all the artifacts to Oklahoma City, a lot of mysterious deaths happened. So there's a lot of stuff that's happened around that area. I think it's got a lot to do with the Native American burial grounds and a lot of other stuff. But I was I don't know if I was 7 or 8 years old, something around that time, and, we was living in a mobile home, my mom and dad, and, I got 2 brothers and sisters at the time, but I was always when I was younger, I was scared of the dark, so what my mom would do is she'd call it a pallet or like a little bed, it's makeshift bed on the floor, and I remember the floor and the wall and then her bed, and I was towards her side of the bed. She's, sleeping in the bed. I don't know if my sister would sleeping with me or not that time, but she's a little younger than me. And but anyway, I used to sleep on my stomach a lot. And after this I never did, sleep. But like I said, I was probably 7 or 8 years old and I'm sleeping on my stomach. I remember waking up and it felt like something was on my back. And only way I can explain it, I felt like basically something small had its knees in my back and had my shirt just shaking me. And at first, it's so long ago, and your memories, come and go, especially when you get older, and little bits and pieces come to me. But I s- immediately I remember there was fear. I was scared. And I turned over, there was nothing there, and all I remember is I tried to wake my mom up, I couldn't wake her up at first. And when I couldn't wake her up at first, uh, then when she woke up, she should go back to sleep, probably a dream, I remember that part. Now I don't remember, I don't know if I went back to sleep or what, the time frame between this, but in the same night, I remember going to the bathroom, and the bathroom was real close to the bedroom, mom and dad's bedroom. And I went to the door and looked out the window, had one of those little square windows, mobile home. I don't know if I was peeing. I don't know why I went to the window, but when you look out the window, even to this day, my sister owns a mobile home there now. My mom passed away. And you can look and there's a homemade tornado shelter my dad and all of them built when they came there, which is going now, but at the time it was there. And then to the right was like a little RV, probably 39, 40 foot RV. It was my grandma. And my grandpa passed away before I was even born, but she'd always lived there until she died. But there was a little path that would go, and then there's a dirt road, and all these mobile homes are lots, my family. But I looked and I all I remember is saying I seen a creature, and I know it had not be over 2 foot tall, or 3 foot tall. And only thing I remember, I don't see no features from the waist up. I remember it's just red fur, like its legs. Now, I don't know if it was like some kind of clothing or it was red fur itself. And for years, personally, I thought it was a demon or an imp, which it might still be. But in the last few years, I might be thinking is what they call is one of the little people. It could have been a little person. Uh, I've heard, the Native Americans talk about it, and then I've seen videos of Northeast Oklahoma. They've had a lot of sightings. I don't know if you've heard of it, but of sightings of I don't know the exact word, what they call it, the little people of the woods. But yeah, that was, that was weird, traumatizing. That was probably one of the most, things I remember younger, because I've had things happen throughout my life, supernatural. Um, and I really think that God's given me a gift of discernment in a way. But anyway, um, I know that I haven't told this before, but before that day that it happened, because I remember details and I don't know why I don't write them down. But my uncle he was all a pastor, and he was a Sunday school teacher, and he said that I remember it was a day or two before he would come down and visit my mom and they'd drink coffee at night, and because my dad had MS. He was a veteran in the Navy, and later on he got MS, multiple sclerosis. It was handicapped, and you get a lot of visitors. And I remember he was saying that because he lived in a mobile home about 5 lots down that road, and that's where the woods were, which later comes into play. He said that this a creature came to him real small, was speaking to him, you know. And my mom always had a sense of humor. Even if she believed you, she would laugh. She's kind of, I'm kind of like that too, laugh at a funeral type thing. But I'm serious, not making fun. But she had a sense of humor. I remember she would kind of laugh about it. But I remember he told me that story. And then the night before too, um, I remember just lately too, part of the story. That night that was speaking, that it came to him, I had a dream, most terrifying dream I've ever had in my life. And I don't know if all this ties together or not, but I had a dream that I was walking. I'm a kid, 7 or 8 years old. Like it was kind of a southern, Victorian, beautiful house, and all these people were having a party in the backyard, like having tea, all dressed up, the ladies and the men, gentlemen. And I remember there was 2 guys standing beside each other, and one was a little bit taller, and they was, handsome men, you know what I mean? Real handsome, gentlemen. And I remember I was in this dream, I was looking at the one guy, and all of a sudden, he just face started melting. He melted all the way down to a skeleton. I remember I was just terrified of that dream. And then it was those 3 days, and then that happened, that thing came to me. Now, like I said, I thought for years it was an imp or a demon or something, which it still could be. But, I'm kind of leaning towards a little person. But anyway, I'll get like I said, I'm trying not to be all over the place, but just things that's happening. In 2011, I was married at the time, and it was not far from that where my mom and dad's place, probably I don't know 300 yards away maybe. And I remarried and I bought a new mobile home. Now this mobile home, you know, uh, I remember it didn't even have skirting on it yet. You know, we had the guys to come out and had a little porch on the front. And at the time I smoked. So when I walked out on the porch, I remember it was about 2:30 in the morning. First of all, I was sober. I just want to, make sure all these things that, you know, uh, that's happened. I was sober. But anyway, I walked on the porch. I remember it was 2:30, about 2:30 or 3 in the morning. Moonlight was real bright. And when I'm on this porch, which was a small porch, to the when I look straight about maybe 50, 60 yards is these woods. Now, at the clearing of the woods was a, concrete pad. It was a church my uncles and my dad built when they moved there in the 70s, but somebody arsoned it, burned it down. And then right beside that was my uncle's place. And he's passed away now. He had a little lot with a mobile home. So when I look straight, the woods are kind of to the left. He's there, and then the next lot over was my aunt and uncle, and on so far down. But anyway, and you can get in these woods and walk all the way to the Arkansas rivers without even seeing anybody. It might be wide one part, might be short one part, but you can. So I remember I was sitting there and I started hearing something coming through the woods. Well, I didn't hear no engine, but my mind thought it was some of the teenagers on a mule or a side by side coming through there, or a four wheeler, because they do that sometimes at night. But I still didn't hear no engine. Well, I got looking and I hear it crashing. And to be honest with you, it sounded like a car. It sounded like um, sounded like a Volkswagen Beetles would have sounded like an elephant coming through there. But when I started looking, I started seeing some of the trees moving, while this thing's going through there. I'm still thinking that when it comes to this clearing, I'm gonna see a four wheeler, I'm gonna see a side by side. I'm fixing to holler at a bunch of teenagers for being out so late, being loud, basically. Well, man, I kept seeing it, Cody. I kept seeing the moving, the trees and everything. When we got to the end, it didn't come out. I was just sitting there waiting. I'll never forget it. I remember I had the cigarette, right up to my lips, fixing hey, this thing screamed, man. It was like it was like a guttural roar plus the high pitched scream at the same time. That's the only I've never heard anything like it in my life. And it probably done it for maybe 2 seconds, three. First thing that hit me, I could feel it like in my chest, in my stomach. Cause I used to go, told this before, I used to go to NASCAR races, Indy car races, and some funny car races. And that's what it felt like. Like when them engines, revving up. That's what it felt like. But it was like I was stunned. I couldn't move. But, and then I couldn't move. I felt that inside me, and plus I've never had a fear come over me that I've ever had in my life. I'll get into it. I've seen things, you know, I've I've never felt a fear like that in my life. Um, all I remember is I kind of broke out of it, you know, and I opened up the door and I walked in. Now I don't remember if I grabbed my Bible and started praying. I don't remember. It's just like I don't remember anything after that. I just seemed like I woke up the next morning. I knew it happened. Huh? Did you say something?
No, I was going to ask you. So this was at the same property that you saw that imp or what you believe to be an imp.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll get into this too. The land that at the time that my wife, you know, her family, see the road went like a half went to a L, and her family lived. I know her family my whole life, and you know, it was it's a long story, but it was mistake marriage. One of the things you mistakes you make in life. But God bless them. But anyway, I when that happened, it's like I was questioning. First of all, I thought it was demonic, 100% demonic. I didn't think about Bigfoot. See, before all this, in the last probably 2 years, I went down the rabbit hole or whatever you want to call it about the cryptics and everything. Because before this, I believed in demons and I believed in angels. That was it, And Bigfoot was undiscovered ape. That's what I thought it was. Now lately, I think it was Bigfoot. I think it was a Class B sighting. I've heard people have so many similar things. Now, I think that Bigfoot, me personally, uh, I believe that like Josh does for mysteries, I believe they're a form of Nephilim. There probably are, come from that seed of evil, and I think Dogman is pure evil. But because in the Bible, angels can take form of men, and also, with the angels came down in the book of Enoch or whatever, and what they done, it's in Genesis 6. So, but that's my opinion on that. But I would, for over the years, I always wondered, did it really happen? Yes, it happened. Was it a dream? But I know it happened, man. I was wondering why nobody else heard it. And what was weird about this land that I was living on right there, and my mom, she would see things too, and my uncle, like demonic things and stuff, and she'd always pray and rebuke them. But my mom would tell me, my mom wasn't alive when I married this girl at the time, but this land I remember as a kid, they'd have tent revivals. And when it had these big giant tent revivals. See, I'm Romani, I'm a Romany child. I'm English gypsy is what it is, basically. Slang term, that's what I am, English gypsy, Romani. And I remember when I was a kid, all these clans would come, these Irish, Scottish, and English. They'd have big revivals. They'd come together, and have revivals, and I remember they had vendors out there. It'd be a big deal on this land. My mom would always tell me, she'd see that land down there, son. Now, if she's right, I don't know about this, what she said. But she said they cast a lot of demons down there, and and a lot of them didn't know what they were doing. Now, is she? I don't know what kind of statement that is. I mean, because I know when demons, you cast them out to go to a dry place, and they come back to see, if your house is swept and with 7 other demons. Um, I don't know. It's just it could be tied to the land itself. I've had older people tell me that the land's cursed because of Native American burial grounds. It's always been funny. There's more stories that's happened down there because I had a relative that probably lived a half a mile, and he would tell me when he was 12 years old. I thought he was just joking, but he kept telling his whole life that when he was woke up in the middle of the night and he heard something, because I remember his mobile home was real tall, and he had, some of them you got to jack them up real tall, and with concrete blocks. But he said he stood up in bed and looked through the window. I mean, he looked through his door, and the window was in the hallway, and he seen two red glowing eyes. He said it was the worst smell he ever smelt in his life. And there's I've had other people, know relatives tell me not far from there, they had a back roads because it's out in the country. You teenagers, you ride the back roads, redneck deal, and there was a little Catholic church back there, and we go park sometimes and hang out at night. And I had 3 different people tell me that they got scared. They basically park with girls, hanging out and stuff, but they is on a back road that they've heard stuff coming through the woods and screaming, and they'd have to leave, and that's only a half a mile from where I had my encounter. Um, before I get it, go ahead. I talk without breathing, so if you got to ask me something, just interrupt me.
Hey, fair enough. No, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff that happened in this area, and so this was in LeFlore County, and I know there's a ton of different,
Hmm.
sightings, a lot of Bigfoot sightings and different things there. So that kind of goes right with a lot of things I've heard from other people as well. So uh,
Yeah, Yeah, and there's this lady I've told this to you before. She's a good friend. She's 65 years old. She lives in town here in an apartment. Well, she lived uh down there, like where the Native American burial grounds is. There's a black community called Fort Coffee, and she lives down there. I went to school with her brother, and her brother's a pastor, here in Fort Smith, pretty nice church. But I go visit her. Like if I go to the store, I'll call her because she don't like to drive. I've known her for 30 years. I said, do you want, something, when I go to the store because she likes Big Red or something, I'm just friends with her. Well, me and her was talking probably about 3 months ago, and we don't all we talk about either is family, people we know, God, or she likes to talk about football, which I hate sports. But anyway, she'll talk about her favorite team. I don't know what came up. I was talking about the podcast, that I got, the Boom Boom Room. And I talk about people about Bigfoot. And she goes, you know what? I gotta tell you something. She said that I was 15. I'm talking about she lived not even a quarter mile from the Native American burial ground. She said, we snuck out, me and my cousin, one night, 'cause it's all dirt roads and bottoms down there. And she said, I heard something growling. We was, going back home. Said it was a little middle of the night, 12 or 1 o'clock. And we looked back and she said, I'm telling you, it was the biggest wolf I've ever seen in my life. What do you mean? I said, she said it was a big giant wolf on, I said, was it on 2 legs? No, no, it was on 4 legs. It had glowing red eyes. I said, are you sure it wasn't some kind of dog? She said, no, it was a wolf. I said, there ain't no wolves in Oklahoma, wild wolves. She said it was huge. She said it took off after us. And she said, she wasn't far from home. So she ran. When she ran, it hit the porch, turned around, it was gone. Now, could it have been a dog? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know any, dogs with glowing red eyes. I mean, there is possibility of reflection or something. But this was the weirdest thing she ever told me. And like I said, we don't have any conversations about cryptics or Bigfoot. Never. It's just one time this kind of came up. She told me that she was she said, I don't know if she's 9 or 10 years old, but it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I guess she was being unruly and her mama made her go outside. So she goes outside and she's got this propane tank, those ones, that you fill up with propane and, when I was a kid, I'd get on them and thought they was a horse, you'd play on. So she goes over there all pouting and she gets on this propane tank and she said, I'm laying on my back. She said she hears something because her mom, I guess, put her in a timeout, basically. Um, so she hears something. Now there's no reason for this lady to lie. I don't see any reason for her to lie about this. She's 65 years old. She's very smart woman. She said, I rear her up. I look, she said, there's 3 scarecrow creatures and they're coming towards us. So what do you mean? She said, look, she said exactly what it looked like. A mama, a daddy, and a smaller one's what it looked like. And they were coming towards it. And they had red eyes. I said, what do you mean? She said it was 3. It looked just like scarecrows coming at me. And now I've heard of, one other incident about scarecrows. It was on Daniel's show. It was one of uh, a lady from Kentucky was telling a story, but the 3 of them, I've never heard of that. And she said she just ran to the house and knocked on the door, and her mom let her in. But I thought that was just mind blowing when she told me that. And this is all around that same area.
What do you think it is about Oklahoma and especially, LeFlore County, and there's many other counties where there's a lot of sightings. What do you think it is about Oklahoma that draws these, these things there?
I think it's I think it's got to do with the Native Americans, man. I mean, the Trail of Tears. I mean, what they done, that was heart wrenching. And, there's a lot of minorities and different groups of people's been done wrong, Uh, my people, the Nazis killed them in World War II, you know. We were slaves in certain countries and stuff, I went deep dive on it, including with the Jews, and the Nazis did. But I don't know. I don't understand why it's that bad. I mean, I don't understand it. I know it's a lot to tie in with the Native Americans. Is it them just you know so much negative stuff? Uh, them cursing the land. I don't understand it. I don't get it. But it is in history. I mean, it plus history. You don't know what's right or wrong. Maybe half of it's the right thing. And I think sometimes it's a lot worse than we think too. But yeah, it's a weird area. Now I used to go hunting down in southeast Oklahoma. Now I never had nothing happen at antlers and all down there. I probably was in Area X too. That's infamous, but I don't remember nothing happening. Weird happening or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some weird nights. I remember, some barking that sounded like wolves, and it could have been something, but at the time, you're talking about 16 years ago. I wasn't thinking about Bigfoot or cryptics or dog man anyway.
Fair.
But um, but I'll get into telling you about this house I was in. About It's been probably 5 years since I've been in this house because 4 years we sold it at the time. At the time, my girlfriend, fiance at the time, whatever you want to call her, but I'll just refer to her as girlfriend at the time. But we had this old house, and I prayed to the Lord about selling it because we wanted to move out the country and stuff like that. Well, it was like a miracle happened 4 days later. I didn't even list it or nothing. The guy comes knocking on the door and asked to buy the house. Old house was probably built, I don't know, maybe 20s, 30s, and it was in a flood zone too. So when it would rain a lot, it would almost come up to the house, and it was in a bad neighborhood, but we never got bothered. But anyway, now it's the things that happened in the house. I think that some of it wasn't just the house. I think it was the people that would come, few people that would come in and out of there. Because some of the people that would come, they was very, I don't know the word. I just say just straight up evil. And her brother-in-law was pretty. I didn't see nothing good about him except if he had $20, he'd give you 18 of it. But anything else, was bad. I mean, that was the only good. I mean, but her she had nieces and nephews that live in where did they live? Was it Michigan or Minnesota? I think Minnesota. Well, anyway, their stepdad was um not they was abusing one of them physical, whipping them and stuff. And I got wind of it. I said, no, I said that ain't gonna happen, I said, right, let them come here and live with us. I'm not gonna let that happen to no kids. Nobody's gonna whip them. The way I'm talking about bad, beating them. It was awful. So anyway, um, there was, I think one of them was 14. There was two twin boys that was 13. It was all around the same age, 13, 14. Well, long story short, um, I remember we was in the living room one day, being her. The niece was in the side room, which was my girlfriend's brother's room, and she come running out of there. She said, "Why did you throw that lighter at me, Aunt?" And I looked at her. And said, "What do you mean? You come in there and you threw a lighter at me, hit me right in the head." And she said, "What do you?" At the time we thought she was just pranking or something. No, I seen you when the lighter hit me. I turned and I seen you in the doorway and you took off. We thought we was joking. She was joking, right? Well, I don't know the time frame which all this happened. It's a couple months. Her nephew, one of them, and first of all, smart kid, nothing mental about him at all. And he comes to us and says, "There's a lady speaking in my ear that looks like you, Aunt, telling me to do bad things." That's exactly what he said. First, I thought he was joking. Then he kept saying, "Well, I told him, I said, you got to pray, and everything." Everything else, the kid, was normal kid. I said, "You got to tell, you got to rebuke it in the name of Jesus. You got to pray, everything." And I said, "We better watch him. I don't know what, just kind of be aware of him." But we kept praying and praying. While I was praying one night, I remember it's like the Lord spoke to me and said that you can run this spirit, because I'd pray over the house all the time when I feel something evil. Because one night it was sitting there, and I heard the toilet lid slam, and that was fine, but it done it 2 times, and I was messing around filming something too, and I looked and there was orbs all in this picture. Now it wasn't, no dust orbs or nothing, it was actual orb. And now during this time too, my nephew came and stayed a few days, and it was early one morning. I was getting out of bed, and my girlfriend said said my nephew's name, and I looked and seen him walk by, but he had a different shirt on. Well, I remember she said, "Get up and see what's going on. Is he all right or something?" Because he'd always get in a little bit of trouble here and there. So I get up, go in there. I don't see him anywhere. Well, come to find out, he's been gone for like 3 or 4 hours, and it looked just like him, but different clothes, just like him. Well, um, I think it was spring break or something, and her nephews was with her brother working and out of town. Well, it's been on my mind about what's going on. This thing speaking, in his ears and stuff. Excuse me for a minute. Let me get a drink. Man, my mouth is dry. But anyway, I'm this bedroom we got is like used to be a where you park your car, a little garage. It's an old house. You step down. There's some other weird stuff that happened to me in this house I'll get to too. Well, anyway, whoever built the house, they must was one arm and one leg and one eye. That's all I can say. And when you go to the bathroom, the door's about this big because you couldn't put a door on it. So it just had like a curtain on it, that you could see through kind of. And nobody come down there and be when you go use the restroom. But anyway, so her nephew's out of town with her brother. They're supposed to be back that night, I remember. And I'm standing up doing a number one. All of a sudden, I've had things manifest, but I've never had anything manifest like totally solid, you know. I look and this thing standing there, and it looks just like her. It looks like their aunt, my girlfriend at the time. and it looks between her and the Grudge. The thing on the Grudge is what it looked like. I mean, it didn't look like a T at her, but she was dark complected and long black hair. And I seen it for maybe a second. All I could see is just his hair and his pale face and like it's dirty clothes. I don't know if it had a dress, but as soon as it disappeared, I said, "What do you want?" And it said, "I'm waiting on," and it said his name. And then I said, "No, you ain't." And I just started. I mean, it didn't scare me. I just started rebuking it, praying. I'm just, I got angry, in the spirit. And I got down praying too at the same time. And the Lord said, "You can run it out of here, but he's got to denounce it." So when he came home, I set him down. I said, "What did you?" I talked to him. I said, "That thing manifested in front of me." I said, "Let me ask you something." I said, "What did you do?" You know, "What do you mean?" I said, "You done something." I already knew you done play with a Ouija board or something, basically, what I'm telling you. And finally he said, "Well, I was at my girlfriend's house and I played with the Ouija board." I said, "Well, that's it." Anyway, I started, making him repeat the prayer, and denouncing it and everything. And after that, it never did speak to him and it never manifested at all. And, but I had other weird things happen to me in that house, you know, but,
Man, sounds like you've had a lot of different things happen, throughout your life.
yeah,
Um, that's pretty wild. I couldn't imagine turning and seeing something just kind of manifest like that. Especially, I'd probably be scared. So that's I like that you went directly to um,
yeah,
rebuking it in the Lord. So I think
yeah.
the proper way to go about that. But I'd probably be in shock.
Yeah, well, the only thing I ever really scared me was, like I said, when the big I believe Bigfoot screamed, and I spoke about this last night on a live on Jim Powell's show, the Night Watch. Is in the same time frame when I'm in this house. I was laying in bed one night, and it was just as real as can be, Cody. I looked up. I was laying in bed. It was like a window. Now, when I told them this, they are more educated in the supernatural. A lot more people than me. I don't know. I was talking about abductions and aliens, and this is kind of a norm thing that's happened to people. Well, anyway, I looked up and it looked like a square window was opening up, and like I could see into the clouds. It was real bright. Now I don't know. I didn't feel anything evil or nothing. It could have, but it might have been evil. And then a little bit after that, I look over. I'm on the left side of the bed, and there's stairs that go up to the kitchen. Oh, big old stairs. And I look, and I see three, like they were not morphed together. It was weird. They was three shadowy outlines of a typical gray, like the head of an alien, and then their fingers were like bulbs, and like they was kind of like moving like that. It was weird. It's like they was set. I didn't see their eyes, no mouth, like the black shadowy outline of these three creatures. And I could see their figures moving like that. It was just weirdest thing. And I can't remember if I was what happened. I know of anything that out of the ordinary, I'd start praying. You could feel, but I didn't think it was anything good. The only thing that ever happened to me good is I had a wreck in 2001, and I know it was some angels I seen. I had a wreck, and I can tell you about that if you want, or if not. But
Man, we should definitely do another episode.
yeah,
We have you
yeah, I'll
on.
be glad to. I'll be glad, and like I said, I enjoy talking about it. Because I learned myself. I learned more about it, talking to people, and and I enjoy it. But there's things that I need to write them down more. I don't write stuff down because they'll come and go. It just seems like when I get older, I forget things. But I need to write down, more stuff because there'll be little things that happen to me that, oh yeah, this happened. So, but yeah, there's other stuff I could tell you that I could save it for another time.
Yeah,
It's
no, I
happened. I'll be glad to
appreciate
come back.
that. I'm with you. I think a lot of these things are tied together, and
Mhm.
a lot of these encounters, whether it be Bigfoot, aliens, even some demonic encounters, I feel like happen a lot of times in Native American either burial ground areas or areas where they traveled often. So I feel like there's, my opinion only, is that there is
Yeah.
definitely a tie to all of this, and so it's definitely intriguing to hear this, and especially where you lived when you were younger and kind of as you grew up.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, I thank you for having me. Like I said, I'd come back anytime, just anytime. I'd be glad to come back. I appreciate it.
So how many of you guys want to go watch the Grudge movie right now in the dark? Not me. Not after hearing Ash's encounter, a real life encounter, not a movie. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Ashes, and we appreciate him coming on the show, supporting our show, and we'd love to have you on the show as well. So if you or anyone you know has a story, an encounter, um, anything that's related to what we talk about on this channel, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Our email is going to be right below. It's strangeconspiracies88@gmail.com. This show is not possible without each and every one of you, and we greatly support you watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing our channel. So we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. The world is a lot stranger than we pretend it to be. Just because the show ends doesn't mean it disappears. So tonight, when you're going to turn the lights off, just remember, not everything has to be seen to be real. As always, stay aware, stay curious, stay rude, and stay alive. We'll see you on the next episode of Strange Conspiracies.